Brian Tyler Cohen's background mocks all of you. Doesn't he just have like a plainish wall? What does he got behind him? Yeah, him. But it works. It's fine. It's a simple thing. Fine design, whatever. Like whatever he's shooting on. Like I think this is it's just a good like standard professional like setup. Like it looks good. Like we'd call this rock solid. Fuck, give me a full shot of him. What the fuck? Doesn't have to worry much about like depth of field or any of that bullshit. It's just a lens that's focused on him. Seems like he's lit pretty standard. I don't think there's a rim on him. I think it's just a key and a fill. I think. Or it might be a key at like a 20 like over here. But yeah, I think it's fine. It's standard, yeah. I think sets can be fun if you do it well. Span Shapiro's looks like right now. Hold on. I don't think he has perms. Oh, fuck, he's just calling me. Hey, what's up?
Hey.
Hi, how's it going?
Oh, good, how you doing?
Pretty good, just chilling.
So the thing, like my background actually used to be stark white. And the reason I did that was because I was just so focused on making sure that nothing distracted anybody from any of the content. And I was like, what if I just sat in a white void? And also I wanted to be able to go places and shoot and not have it look any different from any of my other content.
Yeah.
So I just had a white void for years, and people would tell me the worst part was like watching in bed and it's this bright ass white screen that would hurt everybody's eyes. But that's what I had for years before I had this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think you can make different arguments for different types of setups, and yeah, I mean, yours is just like it's super solid, not distracting. Yeah.
Yeah, I was curious because most people do like a thing in the background, but like you have yours. Lights seem to be like the thing now. I mean, you were just showing Luke's, having like those lights. I'm curious what your thoughts. I mean, is that new? It's not. It's very much of the gamer like
Aesthetic,
you
yeah.
know aesthetic, but I see a lot of other people in the space. Maybe it's just because they're younger people, and so they have that aesthetic anyway. Like someone like Luke, because he's younger, might be more predisposed to having that background anyway. But I'm curious whether you're seeing that like broadly adopted in the ecosystem.
Not to toot my own horn or anything, but my guess is going to be that a lot of these people are either influenced by me or they're influenced by somebody that came from me. So I think Luke Beasley came, I think, out of Vosh's community, who came out of my community. And then if you're coming from like the YouTube world, the YouTube politics world, or any part of my world, you're probably like in the gamer sphere basically. And in the gamer sphere, like colored LEDs and stuff are just they're just like very popular. Yeah.
Yeah,
Everybody also wants you to know that I think you're speaking on the webcam mic. I don't know if your SM7B is picked as the right input device, whatever. I can hear you. You're audible. You sound fine, but it's just not your normal mic. But yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
This should be better.
Yeah.
Let's test.
Cool.
Okay. The whole YouTube chat where I usually watch is just, I think, has very quickly learned the extent to which I am just a boomer struggling to figure everything out as I navigate Discord.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're fine. I think that like when it comes to set design or stuff like that, this is all like pretty minor background-ish stuff. Like content is king for everything. You can have a dog shit everything, and it doesn't matter if the content is good, or you can have people that spend tens of thousands of dollars on stuff that has literally no return because they're just boring and not fun to watch. Right. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's like how I looked at everything when I first started. I just wanted to focus on the content. I literally didn't want there to be any distraction. I didn't want anybody to be able to see anything else on screen, because I felt like confident enough in the content itself to carry it. And even now, like now, I like the aesthetic where there's nothing, like completely minimalist, like very Apple, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, like even this is uncomfortably busy for me.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's literally nothing wrong with that. It's just a matter of what you're going for. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna change it to all. I'm thinking of doing like a full rebrand and just changing everything behind me to black, and just doing different like black panels.
Yeah, you could do that. Um, yeah, be careful with all black that you don't look like you're floating in a void, like you're Zordon or something, or you're just like kind of
Have the
back.
same problem that I did initially, where I instead of a white void, it's just a black void.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I feel like your background right now is fine though.
Yeah, it's all right. This is actually all sound paneling, and everywhere my studio is, because this is my studio is a room, and so it's all just sound paneling, like sound absorption panels. So I just like built this, um, and the whole thing is meant to like just sound design everything.
Yeah, okay.
Um, so did you see Dr. Oz?
Yeah. Um, yeah.
Steeped further in the hell that we live in?
I mean, like, there's I mean, I don't know what I can even say. It's going to be a circus for 4 years, which is maybe better. Maybe that's good because everything's going to be just such a clusterfuck that nobody's actually going to be able to like get anything done. And you're going to have fucking RFK to the side being like, I got rid of the FDA. And then you've got like fucking Gates is like, okay, well, I was trying to prosecute like all the people there and I need their address. And then you've got like fucking like, it's a clown show. I don't even know. Yeah, Jesus. Yeah.
I'm curious what you think of, because there is like a contingent of people that is like, let these people, like, Democrats shouldn't block anything. They should just let this circus thrive. And I mean, it's just going to be steeped in incompetence anyway. And he's going to impose his tariffs and it's going to send costs skyrocketing. And so just what about the contingent of people who say, just let him do it, let him fail, and don't have the Democrats there to prevent him from hurting himself, basically, his own political prospects? I'm just curious, like, what you think on that.
Okay, I'm gonna be a broken record on this, and I see your YouTube chat, so you've heard me a million times say this, but I'm just gonna say this again. The most important thing is the media atmosphere. Okay, the only thing that scares me about what you're saying is that it doesn't like the reality that you perceive around you, it's constructed in the mind, right? Whether or not something is there, whether or not you hear something, see something, like all of these things are images that are put together in your brain, and that's the only place that reality really matters. So if Democrats do a thing and they let Trump run amok and he destroys a whole bunch of stuff, and then a Democrat president comes in afterwards, the only thing that matters is, or the most important thing is, voters have to perceive that it was the Republicans' fault. And that's really difficult. And if you don't have a reign or a hold on the reins of the media environment, then you might end up in a world where you do exactly that. The Democrats are like, fine, take it, have these people do this, and the country runs okay or whatever, and then maybe the economy's just not as great, or Trump can't run again, maybe, and then the Democrat wins in the next term, and then because of all those residual effects of the undermining of all of our institutions, now the country runs into significant problems. Well, guess what? The Democrat is going to be blamed for it, and then a Republican is going to come in. So if Democrats want to go that route, that's fine, but we got to have some kind of accountability mechanisms. We have to be able to track, like, what are the decisions that you're making and how are they turning out, good or bad? Like, that's what has to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel as like this is like the full cynic in me, but I feel like we're so far beyond that. I mean, we saw in the first administration how he was like, "Oh, I'm going to build 3,000 miles of wall," and he ended up building 52 miles of wall, and everybody completely just unquestioningly said that he built the wall on the southern border. Like, if you exist inside the right wing media ecosystem, you don't know that Donald Trump only built 52 miles of wall. You think there's like full wall and it's magnified and has like it is completely unpassable. But like that was years ago, and now I mean I just copied something that shows what the media environment is like. Let me pull it up real quick. It shows what the media environment is like right now, and this is different from a few years ago. So, news influencers who explicitly lean right outpace those who publicly identify with the left across social media sites. Every social media site except for TikTok. So, Facebook is 39% Republican to 13% Democrat.
Sure.
Instagram is 30% Republican to 25% Democrat. Twitter, X is 28 to 21 Republicans. YouTube is 28 to 21 in Republicans' favor. The only one where Democrats or left-wingers outpace right-wingers is TikTok, 25 to 28. So like that's going to flip in 5 minutes from now too. And so the same ecosystem that years ago allowed Trump to get away with saying that he built, 3,000 miles of border wall, even though he only built 50 miles of border wall. Think about what it's going to look like now, years past, like with even more control over the media, even less discerning people in those right-wing media spaces, and just like a few more years in this post-truth era, like real like for if you we're gonna look back to a few years back and think that it was quaint how even some figures on the right had some mild allegiance to the truth, and that's gonna go away moving forward. And so yeah, like to your point, I don't know what that mechanism is to hold people accountable, because like we're at a point where it's not disqualifying in any regard for anybody in the right-wing media ecosystem to say whatever they want, and it's not going to get challenged by anybody. Like who's going to hold them to account? Like Judge Janine, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there is nobody to like hold these people to account when they do lie. And so as the right-wing media ecosystem continues to grow and people stay insulated in there, really he can say whatever he wants in terms of trying to get credit for things he hasn't done, and vice versa. He doesn't have to take credit, doesn't have to take the blame for anything that he has done.
Yeah, I don't know how that's done, but there has to be a way for people to see the impacts of what people do. Like that has to be felt. But there are people that have argued with it. Even on one of these spaces, there was a woman that came in and spoke about how important it was that I think it was her husband, had like diabetes medication and that he could switch insurance or whatever. And I was like, I think I tried to get her to admit, like, are you grateful that Obama passed the ACA? A lot of people, I guess younger people might not remember this, but like you were literally enslaved to your job if you got diagnosed with a chronic condition because you couldn't switch because you wouldn't be able to get new insurance. You were like, fucked. I had a boss like this who was a type 1 diabetic, and I always asked him because he hated it. He was a McDonald's supervisor. He was a night shift supervisor, Mike. And I always asked him, like, why the fuck are you still here? You hate this job. And he's like, I got type 1 diabetes, dude. Like, if I switch, I'm fucked. I'm never getting health insurance again. And I'm like, yeah, that's not a problem anymore. That doesn't exist anymore. That problem was fixed. But now you see Trump, who came in on repeal and replace, right? That was only saved by McCain's vote and then only failed in the Supreme Court because Trump was so vexatious trying to get rid of it that he didn't follow the right process or procedure. Actually, that was DACA. I don't know if he could get rid of if he could rescind all of the ACA now. But like, if now Donald Trump is trying to say like, oh, actually, I like pre-existing conditions. I like that part. I could be wrong, but at one point they might have even been trying to take credit for it. But how does that narrative flip? How's that possible?
Yeah, because the ecosystem that he exists within is unquestioning, and so you can say whatever you want, and they'll just line up behind him. And it's not like they have longstanding principles. Look, this is a party, like on the longstanding principles aspect of it, this is a party that for years, for decades, claimed to be party of family values. Now they're lining up behind a guy who was just convicted of 34 felony crimes for related to hush money payouts for an affair he had while his wife was at home with their infant son. Mm-hmm. And this is a party that beat their chest about states' rights, and they all signed up to support that 2020 Texas lawsuit that sought to invalidate the election results in 4 other states. And the first thing that they did when Roe fell, by the way, was you had Lindsey Graham, who introduced a nationwide ban on abortion. This is after they were claiming states' rights for years and years and years. We want this to go back to the states. First thing Lindsey Graham did was, I think it was like a 12-week ban or a 16-week ban.
Yeah.
So like, fiscal responsibility, they added $7.8 trillion to the debt. They're the pro-Constitution party. They were the first party that prevented the peaceful transfer of power in 200 years. So whatever the branding is, like that's not stopped any of them. Mm-hmm. And so this will be no different.
Yeah, they're very morally flexible. I haven't thought enough about where that comes from, but all of that has been changed. But I mean, like you saw people do this in the most shameless way too. Like you bring up Lindsey Graham. Wasn't he one of the guys that explicitly said, now listen, okay, we're not going to give anybody a Supreme Court pick this close to election. If it comes up for Trump, we're not going to do it for him either. Well, and then he did it exactly for him. And it's like, okay, well, yeah. So these people are shameless.
Like, look, the only thing worse than the Republicans doing that is that the Democrats fail to realize it and continue like abiding by this Dick Durbin-esque, oh, well, we got to follow. It's just this blind deference to the rules and norms and not fighting them, on the same level that they're willing to go into this fight. And like, it's strongly worded letters, basically. Like that's like the approach boiled down to its core is just strongly worded letters by the Democrats.
I don't even agree that I don't think Democrats need to play dirty or start getting crazy, but at the very least, we should be exercising the power that we have, right? Yeah. it is criminal, or you could say it's criminal literally, or you could say it's not criminal at all, that Trump will never see the inside of a courtroom about any of the federal indictments. Like that stuff is probably just going forever.
It is.
That's unbelievable. Why did this take so long?
Because I mean, the answer is because Merrick Garland didn't want to
Seem
offer any
political.
optics of politicization,
That's
and so
great.
he waited God knows how long before he even appointed Jack Smith. And Jack Smith, to his credit, went pretty fucking fast. Like when he did have the opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
And the DC case, he built for speed. There wasn't even any other co-defendants. Like there could have been, like John Eastman, Jeffrey Clark, all the other unindicted co-conspirators that he named in the indictment. None of them were involved because he wanted it to be a fast prosecution. It was built for speed. He could have added those people later in a superseding indictment or a separate prosecution, but like this was built for speed. And that's the best he could do. Before, of course, Trump's lawyers said, we want to make sure that, this can go to the Supreme Court to check for presidential immunity. And they put this thing on ice for months and months. That you can't do anything about. But this should have been like this prosecution should have started years earlier. But Merrick Garland was so like overly cautious and judicious that he decided he couldn't do anything because he didn't want to give the right any ammo to be able to say that the left was weaponizing government. Well, guess what? They launched a fucking committee called the Weaponization of Government Committee anyway. And this was against the federal government where they were prosecuting the president's own fucking son. Hunter Biden was prosecuted. Henry Cuellar was prosecuted. Bob Menendez was prosecuted. If the Democrats are looking to weaponize government, they're really fucking bad at it because they keep weaponizing it against the Democrats. And yet still, even with all these things happening, still Merrick Garland thought like it wouldn't be a good idea to prosecute the guy sought to overturn the election results, who sought to prevent a peaceful transfer of power, who sought to block a certification, the electoral certification vote in Congress until we can get somebody who who like that is him abdicating his job as Attorney General. Your job is to uphold the law.
Yeah.
So
there is I'm taking notes, sorry. There's a sneaky way that this hypocrisy argument works too, in that what'll happen is Republicans will accuse Democrats of doing a bad thing, and they'll say the Democrats are being hypocrites to their own standards, which I think Republicans might even admit are much, or maybe they won't, I don't know. They probably will these days. They're much higher than the Republican standards, right? So the Republicans will point to the Democrats and say, oh, you guys are being hypocritical to your own standards. You guys are weaponizing, the DOJ. And then what Democrats do is they go, okay, instead of taking a moment to reflect and go, are we being hypocritical to our own standards? What they do is they go, we need to do something so that Republicans don't think that we're hypocritical to our own standards. So Democrats will engage in an optics game where they're trying to exist and live inside of the criticisms of Republicans based on the Republican perception of how Democrats act within their own like moral framework. And it's so beyond ridiculous, because then what happens is you wind up in worlds like this where please fucking explain this to me. How is it always the case under Democratic presidents that every single time we're playing safe politically, it just happens to be in ways that totally fuck over the Democratic side, right? Comey felt like he had to make those public excoriating statements about Hillary Clinton because he needed to maintain the integrity of the fucking FBI. Merrick Garland probably felt some pressure to slow roll these investigations because he needed to maintain the appearance of the appearance of objectivity and neutrality and free of biasness of the DOJ. How is it that where are the Republicans? Give me one example of the Republicans ever doing something like this. We're like, this probably looks kind of bad optically, so let's at least like do this. It sure as fuck, it wasn't Alito with the flag flying bullshit. It wasn't Trump with literally fucking anything. Like, where are Republicans doing this, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is like, you got to go back to like, I don't know, the McCain or Romney campaigns. Like, I don't know. I mean, not since the Trump era have we seen anything like that. But it's because Democrats allow themselves to be gamed by the refs, and the refs are the Republicans, and the media treats the Democrats differently than it treats the Republicans because it's just baked into the cake that Republicans are going to act corruptly, and so the media doesn't bother covering them the same way because it's just expected that they're going to act that way.
Yeah.
And so
did you read the Supreme Court decision on the on how like the 14th Amendment is just like it's too confusing, so fuck it, we're just going to get rid of the Section 3?
Yeah.
I don't know if you followed this at the time, but when that PDF got released, if supposedly if you control F, it was either dissenting in part or concurring in part. I think there were I think the three liberal justices didn't just have a full concurrence, and they fucking changed it when they published the opinion to make all of it a concurrence in part, because they all felt like it was important to show unity when we say that actually if you try to coup the government and come back, because we care about this country so much, we're going to let you have another run at it. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, Democrats just allow like that's the problem too between like the disparate ecosystems that we have. Like Republicans media that presumably would be there like that they're responsive to is Breitbart, Daily Wire, like Washington Examiner. They're not going to hold these people to account. Like even Fox News is not going to hold these people to account. The Democrats media that they're responsive to is the New York Times. I mean, this is real critical media. Like it's New York Times, Washington Post, Politico, Axios. And so that's who they're responsive to. That's what their offices are reading in the morning. That's who they're validating with more of their news, more of their interviews, and like that's that life cycle. But on the right, there's no critical coverage, and so there's no reason for them to be responsive to that because they're not getting held to account for anything that they do. And so like that's the asymmetry. That's the asymmetry between the two sides at play. And that's my beef, by the way, with what we're seeing now, and why I feel like it was so annoying for the last almost a decade, really, where Republicans have been quietly building up their ecosystem, and Democrats will, in the morning, complain that Axios and Political Playbook are like, doing both sides media and rigged against them and gamifying politics. And then like that afternoon, they'll break news to them, or they'll grant them an interview, and those are the very outlets that they propped up. Meanwhile, Republicans have spent years and years, like any right winger with like, $60 to buy a microphone and an internet connection who wanted to be a podcaster, like you'd get Trump. Basically, he'd sit down with you, give you 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden you're a legit right-wing podcaster. You're a legit right-wing content creator. And by the way, you're going to be beholden to that guy who just sat down with you, who helped you launch your career forever. And you're going to become an emissary for that guy. You're going to become an evangelist for that guy. And like, I couldn't even get an interview with Kamala Harris in this campaign. I don't think any left-wing creator got an interview with Kamala Harris in this campaign. And it's not, I get why she did it on one hand, because she had 100 days, like, her goal was not building up the ecosystem. It was just like getting in front of as many people as fast as possible. So I understand. Like she came into this process with like a lot of headwinds and very little time. But that was a really good opportunity while the whole country was watching. And we don't get those opportunities a lot because we're going to get back, enter into a period right now where, people are going to tune out and they're going to check in, somewhere around
Midterms
October
and
26th, for midterms.
Yeah.
And that would have been a great opportunity to spend like 2 hours and give 10-minute segments to like, 12 different content creators and validate them and like give them a big stamp of approval for their audiences and help build up their audiences. Maybe let them make some news. And those people could then do the work on the ground for the next 2 years, because they would have gotten 10 minutes from the Democratic nominee for president of the United States. And that whole opportunity was missed. Like not a single left of center content creator got any time during the campaign. And it's just a bummer because the only like that would have been a great moment to lay hands on any, and it doesn't have to be me, like to lay hands on anybody, to lay hands on find young female content creators, find black or brown content, like whatever it is. But instead of just going to Call Her Daddy and like validating those people who aren't doing any political work for the left the other 364 days of the year. So it was just like a missed opportunity that Democrats like never understood. And now, in this postmortem that everybody's willing to do, like now everybody realizes it. Now everybody realizes what a miss it was. And like, oh, hey, maybe we should finally build up our content creator class that's going to do the work for us the rest of the year, that's talking to people for hours a day and like maybe help validate them. Maybe, like, but it's too late because now like the election's lost and like this election was dubbed the podcast election and we missed it by virtue of not validating any of our podcasters in the podcast election.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, like backing up a bit, obviously we're both in a position, or at the very least you are, to greatly benefit from that analysis. And even I am, right? Where it's like, oh, you guys should talk to us more. The things that would also enrich me a ton would make you guys a much better party. So obviously that's not lost on me. And then it's also hard to say because again, every incumbent party got so screwed like across the entire world because of COVID inflation stuff. Maybe it wouldn't have made, it would not have made. Yeah.
I completely agree with that. I don't know if we had, the next iteration of Barack Obama, if he was up there, if we would have won.
Sure.
So I agree with that.
But I will say that online and in the spaces that I'm in, and maybe it's different because I think you're in a bit more, you're like in this legendary, unobtainable, or at least to me, inaccessible, like center left space. Like that doesn't exist in any part of the internet where I go. Like if I'm in any left leaning space or centrist space or right wing space, like I am the only guy there who will be like, yeah, I'm voting for Kamala and I'm happy to, or Biden and I'm happy to. I will support the candidate. I do like this. Like everybody will shut on me, literally irrespective of their political orientation. I don't know if you're like in that center left part of the internet where you can actually like proudly talk about supporting the Democratic Party or saying that like, yeah, it might have problems, but to sit here and pretend like both parties are the same across, like a multitude of issues is delusional. That enthusiasm doesn't exist anywhere online for the party. And I think maybe to some extent it does play back into what you're saying. Like Trump is highly visible. Fucking Tim Pool, who was getting, $5 million from Russia, got an interview with Trump. Aiden Ross and XQC, who are like streamers in my corner of the world, are doing streams with Trump. And the Democratic Party just seems very inaccessible, except for this is even more frustrating. The only people in the Democratic Party seem to understand the marketing stuff and the public goodwill stuff are people that are, all the fans that they engender are too far left to support the party. It's Bernie Sanders and AOC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, I think my demo more broadly is definitely more of like the normie, like it's like what I think is a big contingent of people who would watch, the MSNBCs of the world have changed their viewing habits and now consume more of their content on YouTube. And in fact, I think it's actually the opposite. I think that there are a lot of people that exist in my ecosystem where if you don't kind of play into party politics, like if you don't toe the line, that's actually more dangerous. That I think that's the equivalent of what you're talking about when you do. So it's like pretty much completely the inverse. And so that's why this is like, it's like been an interesting experiment trying to venture out into like different corners as opposed to like very normie YouTube, like, aligned with the party. I mean, that's why I'm doing it, right? Like my goal is not to talk to the same people who already agree on a daily basis, even if the audience is really large and like my subscriber base is really large, like the goal has to be, I mean, it'd be easy for me to just talk to an echo chamber all day and like be fine with that. But like the goal has to be persuasion, or at least that's my goal. Like it has to be expanding the coalition. It has to be like persuading other people. Like I feel like I have an obligation as one of the few content creators that we have on the left, like in the YouTube space, to have the opportunity to like do that. But it is way outside of the comfort zone of like what I'm used to go into like your corner of the internet where people are going to be way more discerning, and it basically the script gets flipped in that sense. Yeah.
And I mean, there's different debate styles or conversational styles you'll have with different people depending on what the topics are and the platform is, of course. But I mean, I think the two prongs to this are there has to be accountability when the right makes a mistake or messes up. People need to be aware that this is them doing this. This is because of this, right? This is happening because of them. You need to be aware of that. You can't blame this on the Democrats. And then a second part is I think it's good to point out when Republicans, like, they don't even live up to their own standards. And that was one of the debate tactics or argumentative tactics I guess I was kind of employing against some people to argue against this. Let's say that you are a big immigrant hater, okay, and you really do want to keep people from coming into the country. Like, even if that's the case, why the fuck would you trust Donald Trump to do it? He was in office for 4 years and he didn't get shit done. There was no immigration bill, no substantial changes to immigration at all. The only EOs he had were on the backs of like COVID and Title 42. And, people are like, what about Remain in Mexico? That came in like 2019, right? Like, he didn't do anything like substantive or substantive with the border, and that's true of basically every single policy. If you want to run the line on like everything he did, he didn't really have much success at all with any of that. But for some reason, Trump, there are so many ridiculously crazy statements that are so not related to reality that, like, there were no new wars under Trump. Like, what does that even mean? There was conflict all across the world. Russia, for the very first time, was attacking in southeast Ukraine and the Donbass. Like, for the very first time, they had troops that were verifiably on the ground fighting. Iran attacked Saudi Arabia. We bombed a Syrian airport. We assassinated Soleimani. There's like so much war shit going on. What are you talking about? And then like the weaponization of the DOJ. We talk about like the January 6th stuff and all of that, but there are so many deeper, darker things that happened in that. The whole elector plot, that's like a whole ass scheme. That's like a James Bond scheme. That's a very schemy, intricate plot. The whole stuff with Jeffrey Clark, that's a very schemy, intricate plot. Like that's all that is insane, like beyond the pale insane. And then the fact that like if you're a Republican and you're saying, I can't believe the Democrats would weaponize the DOJ. Like, there has to be like a room you're running into afterwards to let out all the laughter for how insanely hypocritical that statement is. There's just no way.
Yeah. But I mean, and they know, but like, that's the benefit of like a completely bifurcated media ecosystem. They're not even going to take those questions from Manu Raju at CNN. Like he's going to stand there and they're just like not going to go there because why do they need to? They have Fox, they have OAN, they have Newsmax, they have Daily Wire and Breitbart, Free Beacon. Like they have all these places that they can go. They're not required to go to CBS and like talk to Margaret Brennan. They're not going to go to ABC and talk to John Carl. They just don't have to. And in fact, there's no incentive structure to do it. There's a disincentive to do that because then they get caught, having to answer some hard questions. I mean, and some of them go on Sunday shows, but like there's like you watch them run circles around answering some of these questions. They're like, it's almost like they're like poking their fingers in everybody's eyes by virtue of how blatant like their diversionary tactics are in terms of answering these questions. But really, there's no reason that they have to do it. And I like we're past shame. Like it's not. That's the thing. Like we're not going to be able to shame them by virtue of saying like, sir, don't you remember a few years ago you said this? They don't care. They don't care. And so, that kind of makes the job more difficult because like a lot of what I did my first, 5 years on YouTube was like, combat right-wing disinformation, call out like Republican hypocrisy. And like, I don't know. I don't really know like what is the most effective. I don't know like how effective that is in terms of like doing anything. In terms of like persuading audiences. I guess you just like, you got to beat the drum as much as you can. You were talking about this before. I can't remember what we were talking about exactly, but I do think it's important that like you occupy a really, really, really important. I mean, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but you occupy a really important space in this ecosystem because you're one of, I would venture to guess one of the only people with the audience that you have, that is not openly hostile to the Democratic Party.
So crazy, but yeah.
I mean, yeah. And can still make this argument to an audience of people that has, that I think Democrats are all in one fell swoop recognizing that we've lost. And, so you do, like, I think what you do is like, really important and you do it really effectively. And so, that props to you for that. But it's gonna be interesting to see like what these next couple of years look like and how I guess how our side has to figure out how to reach that audience.
Yeah. It's hard. I mean, it's a lonely world because you're constantly being attacked by the far left and the far right. I guess in some ways I understand the I sympathize with a lot of the Democratic politicians who were having to run. I think the hardest people to be were Democratic politicians who were running in like 2020, 2022, 2020, like running in these districts that were very purple. But this was back when, and I am a full on AOC simp now. I think she's done a tremendous job in like growing and understanding the legal landscape, like and how she functions as a lawmaker while still having effective political outreach. But I would say that like when she first got in Congress, I think that her and the justices were insanely toxic. And the frustration of being like, you're in the most purple district in the world, and you've got like these plus 40 blue Dems who are like, I can't fucking believe you want to support Medicare for all. And you're like, bro, I'm trying to win in a fucking, half my constituents are, okay, KKK hood wearing members, okay, Jesus, chill, all right, you know? I like, people were roasting when we were doing canvassing for the Georgia runoffs, and I'm trying to, we're trying to get like Warnock and Ossoff elected, and it was like, well, what was their position on, Bernie Sanders and everything? Like, guys, can we just have some fucking Dems in the Senate? Jesus. It's hard. Yeah.
I think that's something that the party has to recognize. And there was that 2019 quote. I don't know who asked Kamala Harris back in 2019 about her support for gender reassignment surgeries among trans inmates in prison, but like, I don't know if it was like an interest group. I think that the left has to probably use a little bit more strategy moving forward in terms of like getting people on record, making sure that they check all these boxes and pass all of these like purist litmus tests, because ultimately, like, when that stuff gets exposed in the same way that this tiny little niche issue did in this election, and which is not to say that it wasn't completely exploited by the right, because it was. And Kamala Harris didn't say anything about transgender reassignment surgeries in prison in the entire election cycle. That didn't stop the Republicans from exploiting it anyway behind this like $215 billion ad campaign. But like, I think these special interest groups need to recognize that the only way to help the groups that you are actually purporting to look out for is to like not make it more difficult to actually get Democrats elected. Like, Democrats being in power is going to bring you a hell of a lot closer to like protecting these like disenfranchised groups than if you pass some purity test and like feel great about like all of your answers, but you're not in power. It's not going to matter if you're not in power where you stand on these like niche issues of transgender reassignment surgeries in prison, because you're going to be doing it from the sidelines. You're going to be doing it from like the minority with 46 or 47 seats in the Senate and like 190 seats in the House. So it's like you're going to be all up there on your lonely mountain, taking the moral high ground, and like that and $5 will get you a foot long at Subway, right? Like, it's not going to get you anything.
But I mean, even on what you just said, I want to say it was the Majority Report. I think that was the show that I was watching, and I don't remember who said it. It was either Emma or some other person on that show mentioned something about how I don't know if it was a conversation about Palestine, but they said something like, I would rather be like a trans person in the Middle East than a trans person in Texas. And it was just like, what are we talking about right now, guys? Like, Jesus, just some of the comments that they'll make around, like Democrats and Republicans are both horrible when it comes to trans people. In the United States, it's one of the worst countries in the world for African Americans, for Black people, for trans people, whatever. It's like, can we there has to be a way where we can be critical of our side, but not be so far gone that this has to do with my criticism of like, so I'm looking at like Kalinsky a lot now, who, when Kalinsky is like four sides related to the Democratic Party, he's for it a lot, and I appreciate that. He doesn't mince words with attacking the right, and I'm grateful for that. At least it's not like both sides are the same. He doesn't do the both sides thing, which I appreciate. But like a lot of that genocide rhetoric or the anti-American foreign policy rhetoric, you have to understand there's like certain rhetoric that you engage in that you can't really come back from. You can't have it both ways. If you've stoked the flames of your community to believe that we are legitimately supporting like an indiscriminate genocide against a group of people over and over and over and over again, and we love it, and we love genocide, there is no coming back from that to tell them to vote for the party. It's like when Trump had convinced the entire fucking United States that COVID was like a fake Chinese whatever, and then turned around and tried to get credit for the vaccine. Even Trump couldn't overcome that. Trump can't take credit for the vaccine now because he convinced his audience that that COVID was fake, that it was bullshit. So yeah, I wish that the criticisms, because I've seen a lot of people talk about or starting to echo some of the more, I'll say, extremist or radical rhetoric that I've had. I'm not saying that like the goal should be to become sycophantic Democratic Party supporters where we don't hold our own accountable. I think the goal should be that we should have a greater depth of analysis. We need to create more space where we can say, Kamala Harris or Joe Biden doing this, I think this was pretty bad or pretty dumb. I think Joe Biden maybe had issues that people should have recognized earlier. These are good criticisms. I would vote for Joe Biden in a coma before putting Donald Trump back in the White House. That's a very easy thing to say as well. Like, both criticisms can be true at the same time. And
I think like,
Go.
Yeah, I mean, I do think the criticism has to come within the confines of our political, like, environment,
Yeah.
in that we have 2 parties, and so it can't just be if it's gonna be, like, it always has to, like, I'm not going to repeat, like, the Joe Biden line of, like, "Don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative," but, like, but it is that line, like, there it is always a choice between the 2, and so I think, like, you can be critical and you should be critical, but like, it has to exist within the confines of what the alternative is, and, like, you know, uh, I was looking at, like, and I don't do foreign affairs on my channel. I just focus on domestic policy, and it's mostly it's been especially heavily focused on legal issues and voting rights issues. Like that is one of the principal focuses on my channel. I try to like stay in my lane and what I know best.
Mm-hmm.
But just looking at, I think, the uncommitted movement and that whole aspect of it, like, it took 5 minutes before Trump named a cabinet that I think will probably like, you know what I'm gonna say? Like, this cabinet with, like, Marco Rubio and, who is the person that's was it Rubio that said, "I will never call for a ceasefire"? Yeah, it
Either
was Ru
that or I
Rubio
know
that said,
Huckabee has said some
like,
insane,
Huckabee,
crazy
like,
stuff as well.
waiting
For
for Sure, like, I mean, these are the most hardline, and so, again, I just wish the criticism I wish the criticism that was leveled against the Democrats, which, like, not taking that away from anybody. Everybody's entitled to their opinion on how Democrats handled Israel, Gaza, and again, it's not my lane, so I don't really
mm-hmm.
I'm not, like, I don't have enough knowledge to be able to say one way or the other, but, like, it has to exist in the confines of, like, well, the alternative is gonna be really fucking bad and much worse, and, like, it is. And there's no doubt that, like, what we have now is objectively worse
Yeah.
for people for whom that's a principal issue, that having Mike Huckabee, having Marco Rubio, and, like, these neocons, these uber pro-Israel neocons, that's gonna make them like, that's gonna be a lot worse objectively for that movement, and so, again, all of that is to say, like, to your broader point, that the criticism has to come within the confines of, like, the context that we find ourselves in,
Mm-hmm.
not just, like, the Democratic Party in a vacuum, because it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists as a binary choice between Democrats and Republicans, and so often it's just never viewed through that lens.
Yeah, and I mean, like, people can tell when criticisms come from a place of love or compassion versus a place of like hatred, and all too
Yeah.
often it feels like the criticisms from like the socialist crowd or whatever are coming from like a place of derision or hatred. Like there is no center left candidate that would have replaced Kamala that they would have been happy with. It had to be a far left, like a maybe Bernie Sanders or AOC-esque person, although I think as soon as those people would have made more overtures towards moderate Dems, not the center, but even just like center-left libs, I think people would have been unhappy with it. So,
Yeah.
the criticism doesn't feel like it comes from a place of love. It just feels like it comes from a place of intense hatred.
Right.
And the
Yeah.
another thing I was going to say is a friend gave me this advice a while ago. It was really good advice, and it's changed a lot in terms of how I think about operating online. You have to be careful not to fall into circle jerks or fall into these like kind of just self-reinforcing feedback loops, of course. But a piece of advice they gave me, because I was thinking like, okay, well, people make this accusation about me. People say I did this. Like how do I need to change my rhetoric to account for this and that and that and that? And one of the pieces of advice they gave me is they said you can't live in the criticisms of people that hate you the most that will never accept you. And I thought there was a big degree of truth to that, because like, okay, that is true, because I can make all of these changes in my behavior, and actually this group of people that's criticizing me, these people are never going to agree with that. They fundamentally like hate everything I'm saying. And there's two quick examples of this. The fact that Kamala Harris didn't go on Joe Rogan, and people are like, this is a huge problem. I think a more important question is, why is that the expectation? Like, Kamala Harris did an interview on Fox News, okay, which is a media company that had paid an $800 million lawsuit out because they were blatantly fucking lying, okay, because of lies given to them from people on Trump's campaign to the electorate, right? Because they want to, right? Why is it that Kamala Harris, why is that the question that she was expected? Why is nobody saying, why didn't Trump do any CNN interviews, or why didn't Trump go on any, right? So that's one thing. And then the second thing was when it comes to things like these questions about trans surgeries, like, oh, fuck, like, how do we answer that 5 years ago we did this about trans surgeries? How many people were motivated by trans shit this election? And how many people were motivated by abortion shit this election? Because Donald Trump, in an interview with Jake Tapper, was it, said that women who have abortions need to go to jail, need to go to prison. It was one of the only times I've seen Trump being forced to answer a question ever. You will never in your life hear a Republican be like, oh, fuck, how do we respond? Like, all the Democrats are saying this thing about us. Like, I don't know how we should respond to this point. They just say they don't give a fuck and they just roll on forward. They don't even care. They just keep moving.
Yeah. The rule is like, don't like confer all of this goodwill onto people like who aren't going to even accept it. I mean, this is like with the DOJ thing we were talking about before. It was like Merrick Garland rolled over because and didn't prosecute Trump because he wanted to give goodwill. He wanted to try to confer some degree of goodwill onto the people who are yelling about the government being weaponized. And yet he did that. And what did that buy him? Like, did anybody give him credit? Like, or was it the complete opposite where he might as well just have done it because nothing would have changed about Republican strategy? Republicans would have done everything the exact same way. If Merrick Garland had opened an investigation into Trump and started prosecuting him, they still would have started a weaponization of government subcommittee. They still would have been claiming that the DOJ is rigged against them. They still would have been claiming that that they need to take down the Justice Department. Like everything they said happened kind of regardless of, they had their plan and they executed it regardless of what Merrick Garland decided to do. And so we unilaterally disarmed because we thought that it would buy us some goodwill on the right. It didn't. And they barreled ahead with their plan anyway. And so you have us who do nothing against Donald Trump. You have the Republicans who are attacking us as if we did. And like, where does that leave us? It leaves us in a position where all of their people think that a government that completely neutered itself, a DOJ that had completely neutered itself in deference to the right, was somehow weaponized against them. And Trump didn't face an ounce of accountability. So it's a win-win for the right. And so to your exact point, like, yeah, don't give goodwill to people who aren't going to change their positions anyway. Like, these aren't people who are operating in good faith, and we have to be able to see that. The other thing I wanted to say too is like, I think a rule moving forward is there's just this general sense in politics that, and I see it online too, so I'll wrap this into the media criticism in a moment, but there's this general sense that our politicians have to be like these figures that we hold to some standard where, as if they're our partner, like our spouse or our religious leader or something, and not just a vehicle to get us closer to where we are, where we want to go from where we are now. Like, that's all they are. And I see that online too. Like, sometimes I'll say something. I mean, I've done 4,000 videos, so I said a lot of things. Sometimes I'll say something, and if somebody doesn't agree with it, they'll be like, unfollowed, unsubscribed. Like,
Oh,
then
yeah.
I hope that everybody that you listen to passes whatever purity tests you impose, because like, you know, it's gonna be lonely up there at the top. I think we have to get better at recognizing that, like, look, if a politician, if we agree with them 75% of the time, that's great. And even if like that, and like that's okay, and isn't grounds for us to just like want to rip their heads off because they're not like fulfilling some purity test that we've imposed onto them. But that really, I mean, that's not like the sense that I get from anybody in the political space. And I wish we would be more strategic. I mean, like that's what I'm going to push for, insofar as I'm able to have some influence on how people perceive this kind of stuff. But like, we just got to get better at not just like tearing down our people for not being perfect. And it also does like foster this environment of like fear among people for not like kowtowing to every single extreme niche issue. And we have to be able to say, like, look, if you're trying to win in a district that's like, you know, a Trump won district, like Marie Glusen, I can't remember her last name, like that, you know, that she's one of 3 Democrats who won in a Trump won district. Perez, I can't remember her name. In any case, like these people are much better than the Democratic Party writ large at being able to say like no to issue, and like, and it'll make the Democratic Party, the base, hate them. But like, that's how they win, and we have to adopt that instead of like continuing to impose purity tests on people and watching that kind of backfire over and over again, but feeling like we have like the moral high ground by virtue of saying something. Because again, as I said before, like that's from the minority, like that's not going to get you anywhere.
Or at the very least, I kind of agree with what you're saying, but I'm going back to that fundamental media thing. At the very least, those purity tests, they need to be constructive. The purity tests on the right are very good. It's you support Trump or you get the fuck out. The purity tests on the left are like, Jesus Christ, like, why would you speak out? Like, it happened a lot during the BLM stuff where it's like, fuck me. Like, if I engage in this rhetoric, I'm gone. I can't support it. I can't come out against it because these people, like the people that are doing the purity testing are not the same people that are eating the food, okay? They're the people that are engaging in the purity testing, and then they go back to their, not to pull too many conservative memes here, but they go back to their gated communities and then they tweet about how horrible the country is while they live in California and they're not affected by downstream, by a lot of the bad things that are going to happen now. So you're getting purity tested by people who aren't even testing you for the party or for the candidates, but just for fucking online Twitter memes and shit. One of these, there's so many slogans that come up that I try to fight against when I hear them. And I think that when you hear a slogan, I think it's good sometimes to take a step back and just like think about it. I hear this one a lot when it comes to the two-party system. People are like, I'm not going to vote for the lesser of two evils. And it's like, why not? Like, if I give you a choice and I say, you have to choose, I'm either going to kill right now 1 person or 10 people. What are you going to choose? Are you going to be like, I'm not going to choose between the lesser of two evils. I'll let you do what you want. It's like, no, you choose the lesser of two evils, almost definitionally so. If evil tautologically is a bad thing, why wouldn't you want less of it than more of it? Like, even the slogan itself is stupid. And like you said, like, candidates are a vehicle. Trump is a vehicle for so many different people to pour their special interests in. Trump is an idiot. You think that Steve Bannon or Roger Stone look at Donald Trump as an ideological equal? No, but they sure is he's ideologically convenient to them. And then on a thing that you were saying before, because I've had all these debates, you spoke about, like, did Merrick Garland engender any goodwill? Just the opposite. Even when he tries to engender goodwill, it just ends up working contrary because all roads lead to the DOJ being corrupt. If you go to a conservative now and you say, hey, what do you think about Merrick Garland waiting so long to start his investigation? They're not going to tell you, that doesn't matter to me. I don't care that he waited. It's still corrupt. They're going to tell you, that's actually evidence that he's even more corrupt because he waited to start the investigation until Donald Trump announced that he was running for re-election, and so that they could get closer to the campaign and it wouldn't be solved before then, so that it could be right, Like, they'll say, like, so all the evidence, or even like for the persecution really, of Hunter Biden, right? Well, of course they're going to charge him with some crimes. They've got to cover up the Burisma stuff, so they have to make it look legitimate, like they've actually got him for some things. It's like, what the fuck are we, what? So even if you do a little bit, they just use that as examples that it's actually more corrupt than it is. Like, okay, why not just fucking do your job, right? So on my final point, the Democrats need to just resist where they can in legal means. There are good examples of this, 2 that I think were good. 1 is the Republicans being unable to hold their House Speaker position. The fact that even a few Democrats were considering helping them vote for somebody, fuck that. Hold the line, vote on your end, and if Republicans can't hold together their leadership, then fuck them. Let them eat their own mistakes. That's their problem. Same thing when it comes to budgets or government shutdowns or whatever, right? If the Democrats have, their positions on things or whatever, if the Republicans, especially if they have like majorities in the chambers, if they can't figure their shit out, then let them sink, because again, the American people need to see that it's happening, and they're not going to help you. There's no world where the Republicans come out and help the Democrats on something if they're struggling in a leadership position or some capacity where the Republicans could step up and help. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. By the way, like, if we do see Joe Biden, and I don't think he'll do this because I think he really is like very lost in the sauce of like, oh, you gotta like live above the fray. I don't think he's gonna pardon Hunter, but you will see the same people who cheered. I forgot who it was that Trump pardoned, but he pardoned
everyone. The like Blackgate or the whatever, the Blackwater contractors in Iraq. It was Steve Bannon. Yeah. It was Paul Manafort. It was Roger Stone. It was any person that's anywhere near Donald Trump who was convicted of a crime was pardoned. That's the answer.
The same people are going to come out and pearl clutch to the ends of the earth that Joe Biden would dare do something so extrajudicial against like the U.S. And then like you have like someone like sometimes it doesn't even register what they're saying. Like Nancy Mace keeps coming out and saying that she was the victim of sexual assault, and that as some reason, because the bathroom bill, right? Like now there's a trans member of Congress coming in, and she's like trying to get her 15 minutes of fame and introducing this bathroom piece of legislation and saying like we have to protect women and girls, and I was the victim of rape. And yet this is the same person who doesn't even like recognize, using her own logic, that maybe don't support the guy who you voted for president, who's an adjudicated rapist. Maybe like the guy who you're advocating for to become attorney general, who was under investigation by the DOJ for like sex trafficking of a minor. Maybe that's not somebody who you should support. But there is this cognitive dissonance at play, where the same things that they do will never compute while they're criticizing the left for doing it.
And then these need to be attacks. They have to be attack platforms. Like, and I always say this. I have a 13-year-old son. People say we need to enforce the bathroom stuff because I don't want men going into bathrooms and raping little girls. And it's like, excuse me. Let him go in. I don't want him going into the bathroom and raping my little boy. What the fuck? I don't want any rapists in any bathrooms. Why is it better to send? And also this idea that rapists are gonna you run into the bathroom.
In the men's room.
Yeah, like what the fuck? That doesn't even make sense, right? And it honestly, it should just be pictures of, here's Blair White. Do you want her standing next to your little boy peeing in the bathroom? And do you want to, as a conservative, to explain? Because you think Blair White goes into men's bathrooms? Or show them, is it Buck? I don't remember. Or Buck Angel? Do you know who this is?
No.
Very, very, very famous trans man who does a lot of the both sidesing or whatever. But like, you show him a picture of Buck Angel and say like, do you want this guy going into the bathroom with your little girl? Right? Like, this is so stupid. It's so stupid. Like, nobody would honestly support this. And it's just and I already know that the trans bathroom rapist thing can't possibly be that important, because if it was, conservatives would be talking about every single fucking case ever. And I haven't heard anything about this. And just that whole concept, the fact that you're even fighting on those grounds is just so stupid. Like, hold on. There are rapists, okay, that are becoming trans, and they're just going into the girls' bathroom to like, this is so stupid. These are not worth, yeah.
If like that's the crime you're trying to commit, are you still gonna abide by every rule and norm of society? Like, you're gonna follow all the rules and then go into the bathroom and like that's when you're gonna commit your heinous crime?
Like these are the same people that say, I don't believe in no gun zones because the people with guns aren't gonna follow the signs. Okay, but the rapists are gonna stay in the right bathroom? Like, why not just put like no rapists outside of both bathrooms and just problem solved? What a stupid fucking idea. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I'm going to get back to work here and probably do one more video on YouTube. But it was good talk.
Oh, listen, there's one good guy, okay? Because apparently the billionaire class is now the most important class to have, okay? Mark Cuban needs to get more involved. He's doing a great job, though. I like that guy.
I did an interview with him. He came to my studio, and it's got like 4.5 million views on YouTube. Have you seen it?
I haven't watched it yet, but I mentioned it earlier, and everybody said that, that you guys had... showed it.
He actually, I mean, look, we talked about like, what is it? PBMs, which are like a focus of Lena Khan's FTC right now, and Lena Khan is just like being a hero in her last like moments in government, but he's actually a big opponent of her, but like that was like one area where they have like a lot of commonality. And we talked about like cost plus drugs. And I mean, you know, in like this billionaire race, not to like lionize any billionaire here, but like in this billionaire's race where most of them are just swinging their dicks around and trying to get into space. Like he, you know, credit where it's due. He started, he started a drug company and just offers cheap drugs to people. You know, like it could be a lot fucking worse. The bar's pretty low these days, but it could be a lot fucking worse.
Yeah. Also, my last request is, please, dear fucking God, don't let it be. Don't do this. Don't be part of this, because I will be the first one blowing you up. Okay. If we get 15 unhinged, crazy fucking cabinet nominations, like what's happening, and 6 of them got shot down and 9 get approved, I can already see CNN and MSNBC like, well, you know, we were able to block some of them at least, so it's not that bad, okay? There were just 9 unhinged appointments that got through, and the 6th, I'm worried that there's going to be a situation where there are so many unhinged picks that as long as like half of them get blocked, like people are happy. That can't be the standard. These are insane picks. These are crazy picks. You know it, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, you already know though that like the best thing. I mean, I feel like I said this to you in our last thing. The best thing to happen to Pete Hegseth was like, you know, that Tulsi Gabbard was nominated as DNI and Matt Gaetz as AG. Like it's going to have the effect of normalizing a lot of these people.
And now Dr. Oz.
Dr. Oz. I mean, he's gonna like. I feel like a lot of people are like, well, he's got doctor next to his name, so I guess that's better than just like Matt Gaetz, the guy who is investigated for child sex trafficking, leading the DOJ. Like everything becomes relative, right? And if the Overton window shifts so much that the bar becomes like, hey, focus your attention on the alleged sex trafficker running the DOJ, then you know that's going to have the effect. But like, no, I mean, look, my goal is like to never normalize any of this. None of it is normal, and like to not pretend. I mean, like not to like, you know, do the Mika and Joe like go down to Mar-a-Lago and kiss the ring thing. So yeah,
okay.
Anyway, I'll make that pledge.
Yeah, good luck with everything. Yeah, good luck with your new all black background. Have fun in the void.
Thanks. I'll try to get lost in the void.
See you later. Bye.
Yep.
Wait, what the fuck? The Dr. Oz thing wasn't a joke. It was real? It was real. Dr. Oz is nominated for... to oversee Medicare and Medicaid. Let's see, the head Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Wait, fuck. Somebody linked me in chat a while ago. It was a link of like every single government department and everything. Fuck, what was that link? USA.gov/agency index. Fuck, it's not that. Oh, wait, well, hold on. Maybe it's this. Let's check. Hold on. Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Is it this? You would be the head of this? This doesn't show me government structure. No, this is the one. Oh, wait. Was it this? Ah, okay. Oh, okay. So this is part of the Health and Human Services Department. So he'll be under FDR. No. RFK. Sorry. Or who knows? Maybe FDR will come back to life, you know, with that, as great as all of our new health stuff will be. Anything's possible. Can you surely explain who Dr. Oz is? Isn't he like he's like a weird TV doctor? I've only ever heard really bad things about like alternative medical takes he's had, but I don't actually know. I don't know. Maybe he's actually a really great, really smart dude. And I'm not giving him a fair shake. CMS is wildly important and under the radar agency too. I don't know what the radar agency means. Oh, it's an under the radar agency. Sorry. As in like people don't pay attention. Not only does it administer Medicare and Medicaid, it's the agency charged with approving medical procedures and making sure labs are certified and things like that. Ah. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, originally designated the Healthcare Finance Administration, was established as a sub-agency of the Department of Health and Human Services by the reorganization order of March 9th. It was created to administer oversight of the Medicare program and the federal portion of the Medicaid program. It also ensures that program beneficiaries are aware of the services for which they are eligible, and those services are accessible and of high quality and develops health and safety standards for providers of healthcare services authorized by Medicare and Medicaid legislation. CMS is also responsible for administering the State Children's Health Insurance Program, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, and several other health-related programs. While Oz himself has not been found to be involved in any medical weight loss scams, he's made statements that were exploited by scammers who have used his image in quotes. Let's see, what is this?
Advertising from reaching consumers. We have a short clip of some of these ads that have run on television, satellite radio, online, and in print that I'm going to play so it is clear what we are talking about today.
You may think magic is make-believe, but this little bean has scientists saying they found a magic weight loss cure for every body type. It's green coffee beans. And when turned into a supplement, this miracle pill can burn fat fast for anyone who wants to lose weight. This is very exciting, and it's breaking news. You may think magic is make-believe, but this little bean has scientists saying they found a magic weight loss cure for every body type. It's green coffee beans. And when turned into a supplement, this miracle pill can burn fat fast for anyone who wants to lose weight. This is very exciting, and it's breaking news.
Okay, so it's just bullshit. Okay.
Millions of you love coffee, but now you're gonna love it for a whole other reason. A staggering newly released study reveals that the coffee bean, in its purest raw form, may hold the secret to weight loss that you've been waiting for. The study, presented at a meeting of the world's largest scientific society, triggered unprecedented excitement for a weight loss study. It showed women and men who took green coffee extract lost an astounding amount of fat and weight, 17 pounds in 22 weeks, by doing absolutely nothing.
17 or 70? Wait, what did he say?
Pounds in 22 weeks.
Oh, 17. Okay.
By doing absolutely nothing extra in their day. Could this be the magic weight loss bean to help melt away unwanted pounds that you've been waiting for?
It's easy to understand why so many consumers are willing to take a chance, ignore their instincts, and believe suspicious claims like these. According to the most recent data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, more than 1/3 of American adults are obese, and 70% are either obese or overweight. In preparing for this hearing, my staff reached out to a variety of media companies during advocate series, and the buzz is almost monolithic against you.
Okay, good for you. Oh, wait. Against you. Was he actually here?
Senator McCain.
Paid for
Oh, he's here.
stuff. Why would you cheapen your show?
Wait. Miss McCaskill, Dr. Oz. I want to watch on YouTube so I can fast forward this
Oz,
bullshit.
I get that you do a lot of good
This was 10 years ago.
on your show. I understand that you give a lot of information that's great information about health, and you do it in a way that's easily understandable. You're very talented. You're obviously very bright. You've been trained in science-based medicine. Now, here's 3 statements you made on your show.
Uh-oh.
You may think magic is make-believe, but this little bean has scientists saying they found the magic weight loss cure for every body type. It's green coffee extract. Quote, I've got the #1 miracle in a bottle to burn your fat. It's raspberry ketone. Quote, Garcinia cambogia. It may be the simple solution you've been looking for to bust your body fat for good. I don't get why you need to say this stuff, because you know it's not true. So why, when you have this amazing megaphone and this amazing ability to communicate, why would you cheapen your show by saying things like that?
Uh-oh.
Well, if I could disagree about whether they work or not, and I'll move on to the issue of the words that I used. And just with regard to whether they work or not, take green coffee bean extract as an example. I'm not going to argue that it would pass FDA muster if it was a pharmaceutical drug seeking approval. But among the natural products that are out there, this is a product that has several clinical trials. There was one large one, a very good quality one, that was done the year that we talked about this in 2012. Listen, I want to know about that clinical trial, because the only one I know was 16 people in India that was paid for by the company that was in fact, at the point in time you were...
Oh, no! She looked up the studies. Oh, no! Oh, no. That's not good. Yikes. Yikes. That's never good. When Lil Bro knows what you're talking about and suddenly becomes Big Bro.
That clinical trial, because the only one I know was 16 people in India that was paid for by the company that was in fact, at the point in time you initially talked about this being a miracle, the only study that was out there was the one with 16 people in India that was written up by somebody who was being paid by the company that was producing it.
Well, this paper argued that there was no one paying for it, but I have the 5 papers actually, plus a series of basic science papers on it as well. But Senator McCaskill,
Basic science papers? Okay.
So we can spend a lot of time arguing the merits of whether green coffee and extract is worth trying or not worth trying. Many of the things that we argue that you do with regard to your diet are likewise criticizable. I mean, should you be on a low-fat diet, a low-carb diet? I spent a good part of my career recommending that folks have a low-fat diet. We've come full circle in that argument now, no longer recommend that, many of us who practice medicine, because we realized it wasn't working for our patients. So it is remarkably complex, as you know, to figure out what works for most people even in a diet.
Oof. And he is an actual doctor, a physician. He was an actual physician. Residency, Presbyterian Hospital. Yeah. Okay. Damn. All right. Well.
Dietary program.
Wait, what was that? Oh, no. The publicity of Oz's work created tension with hospital administration, who expressed alarm at Oz's use of therapeutic touch, which he dropped in response to their objection. What is therapeutic touch? Therapeutic touch, or non-contact therapeutic touch, is a pseudoscientific energy therapy which practitioners claim promotes healing and reduces pain and anxiety. Practitioners of therapeutic touch state that by placing their hands on or near a patient, they're able to detect and manipulate what they say is the patient's energy field. Wait, what is happening here? Bro, the 90s were a crazy time. One highly cited study designed by the then 9-year-old Emily Rosa. Nathan, what the fuck did you do when you were 9? And published in the Journal of the American Medical Association in 1998, found that practitioners of therapeutic touch could not detect the presence or absence of a hand placed a few inches above theirs when their vision was obstructed. Well, were they even healers? Wait, hold on. Has he talked about this? Dr. Oz, therapeutic touch. PEMF is why do I have part of this video? Have we watched this before?
Some of the studies have been done with these whole body mats that I showed in animation, and I've got one over here. Let's run over here and I'll show this to you. So these
did we watch this about the magnet shit? Dr. Oz, therapeutic touch. I butchered the spelling on that. No. Fuck me. Okay, don't care. Don't have time. Whatever. Okay.
Program. Even in the practice of medicine, we evolve by looking at new ideas, challenging orthodoxy, and evolving them. So when I hold, these are the 5 papers. These are clinical papers, and we can argue about the quality of them very justifiably. I can pick apart papers that show no benefit as well. But at the end of the day, if I have clinical subjects, real people having undergone trials, and in this case, I actually gave it to members of my audience. It wasn't a formal trial. It was just an.
Which wouldn't pass the trial you did with your audience. You would not say that would ever pass.
Did he call doing it with his audience? He called it a trial? Wait, what?
Is challenging orthodoxy and evolving them. So when I hold, these are the 5 papers. These are clinical papers, and we can argue about the quality of them very justifiably. I can pick apart papers that show no benefit as well. But at the end of the day, if I have clinical subjects, real people having undergone trials, and in this case, I actually gave it to members of my audience. It wasn't a formal trial. It was just an.
Which wouldn't pass the trial you did with your audience. You would not say that would ever pass scientific muster.
No, I would never publish the paper. It wasn't done under the appropriate IRB guidance. That wasn't the purpose of it. The purpose was for me to get a thumbnail sketch. Was this worth talking to people about or not? But again, I don't think there ought to be a referendum on the use of alternative medical therapies, because if that's the case, listen, I've been criticized for having folks come on my show talking about the power of prayer. Now, again, as a practitioner, I can't prove that prayer helps people survive an illness. On the other hand,
it's hard to buy prayer.
It's hard to buy prayer. That's the difference.
Prayer's free.
Yes, prayer's free, and people. That's a very good point. Thankfully, prayer's free. And so but I see in the hospital when folks are feeling discomfort in their life, and a lot of it's emotional. When they have people praying for them, it lightens their burden. So my show was about hope. I wanted, and as you very kindly stated, we've engaged millions of people in programs, including programs we did with the CDC, to get folks to realize that there are different ways that they can rethink their future, that their best years aren't behind them, they're in front of them, they actually can lose weight. So if I can just get across the big message that I actually do personally believe in the items that I talk about in the show. I passionately study them. I recognize that oftentimes they don't have the scientific muster to present as fact, but nevertheless, I would give my audience the advice I give my family all the time, and I've given my family these products, specifically the ones you mentioned, then I'm comfortable with that part. Where I do think I've made it more difficult for the FTC is that in an intent to engage viewers, I use flowery language. I used language that was very passionate, but it ended up not being helpful but incendiary, and it provided fodder for unscrupulous advertisers. And so that clip that you played, which is over 2 years old, and I've done hundreds of segments since then, we have specifically restricted our use of words. I literally not speaking about things I would otherwise talk about. There's a product that I've never talked about in the show that I feel very strongly about because I know what will happen. I will say something in fact, we did a show with Cohen syrup, which did not bring up. There was a South American root that had a big study published on it, I think a very high-quality study, where they showed not only did it help people lose weight, but more importantly, help their health. It was done in women who were diabetic, done by an academic center down there, was not funded by industry. And we talked about it, and I used as careful language as I could. And still, there was internet...
Can I say, okay, so maybe it's cleaned up a shit since then, I'm not sure. The bar is so low on everything. At least this guy sounds like reasonably intelligent. Even if he is a scammer, I'm not sure if he is. Maybe he has cleaned up his stuff, maybe not, I'm not sure. But at least he sounds like an intelligent person. Jesus.
Scam ads, picking one or two supportive words, where of course I support them, I wouldn't be talking about it otherwise.
Well,
I still ended up out there.
Listen, I'm surprised that you are defending. I mean, I've tried to really do a lot of research in preparation for this trial, and the scientific community is almost monolithic against you in terms of the efficacy of the 3 products that you call miracles. And when you call a product a miracle, and it's something you can buy, and it's something that gives people false hope, I just don't understand why you need to go there. And it's something that gives people false hope. I just don't understand why you need to go there. You've got so much you do on your show that makes it different and controversial enough that you get lots of views. I understand you're in the business of getting viewers, but I really implore you to look at the 7, and I would ask you to look at the 7 list that the FTC put out on the gut check. The 7, it's very simple. Cause
I know the 7. I say those things on my show all the time.
Well, then why would you say that something is a miracle in a bottle?
My job, I feel, on the show is to be a cheerleader for the audience. And when they don't think they have hope, when they don't think they can make it happen, I want to look, and I do look everywhere, including alternative healing traditions, for any evidence that might be supportive to them. So you pick on green coffee and extract. With the amount of...
I'm reminded of that Jon Stewart Kramer interview where Kramer is basically, he not a great guy. And at some point, after Jon Stewart has eviscerated this guy, I don't know why it's so hard to find this stupid fucking interview on the internet. At some point after eviscerating this guy, Kramer says, don't you want a guy who's been involved in, all of these like weird market shenanigans? Don't you want a guy like me on TV exposing it? And Jon Stewart's like, yes, I actually would very much love that. That would be great. That would be amazing. But that's not what you're doing. You're furthering. You're still taking part in that same behavior, And it's the same thing with Dr. Oz here. When he's like, my goal is to be a cheerleader for the audience. Well, direct them well then. Don't promise them that some stupid pill that you're also getting paid a fuck ton of money, an assload of money to sell to them, is going to help them with their weight loss. Like, be honest. We don't need the miracle in a bottle. We need like honest medical advice.
Everywhere, including alternative healing traditions, for any evidence that might be supportive to them. So you pick on green coffee and extract. With the amount of information that I have on that, I still am comfortable telling folks that they can buy a reputable version of it. And I say this all the time. I don't sell it, and these are not for long-term use. And by the way, with green coffee and extract as an example, it's £1 a week over the duration of the different trials that have been done. That happened to be the same amount of weight that was lost by the 100 or so folks on the show who came on, and half of them got a placebo. We actually got fake pills, gave it to half the people, real pills to the other half. And it's sort of the same thumbnail. I'm looking at a rough idea. If you can lose £1 a week more than you would have lost, doing the things you should be doing already, you can't sprinkle it on kielbasa and expect it to work. But if that's trial data is what's mimicked in your life and you get a few pounds off, it jumpstarts you and gives you confidence to keep going. And then you start to follow the things that we talk about every single day, including all those 7 items. I think it makes sense.
Well, I'm going to give time to my colleagues now, and hopefully I'll have a chance to visit with some of the other witnesses in the next round. I will just tell you that I know you feel that you're a victim, but sometimes conduct invites being a victim. And I think if you would be more careful, maybe you wouldn't be victimized quite as frequently.
Fucking, what a great fucking quote. That is literally the entire history of Donald Trump's life of, well, I feel like I'm such a victim. Yeah, because you're asking for it, literally. You make yourself a victim, of course.
Those topics you mentioned are over 2 years old. I have not been talking about products in that way for 2 years, and it has not changed at all what I'm seeing on the internet, and frankly, it's getting worse. So I completely heed your commentary, and I realize to my colleagues at the FTC that I have made their jobs more difficult. That's why I came today.
Good.
I'm cheerleading for this process. I want to do anything I can to help, but if taking away those words doesn't change the problem that's already happened.
I think to legalize all drugs, to open the border, to raising our taxes. I want Washington to be civil again. We need it to be less radical. John Fetterman, unfortunately,
All right, let me know if you can hear this.
Lisa. All right, gentlemen, on to the economy. Pennsylvanians are struggling to put food on the table and gas in their cars. Our next star Emerson College The Hill poll shows the
Am I really judging him based on a political debate?
economy and inflation are the biggest concerns for voters. 39% of them listed that as the top issue. Beginning with you, Mr. Oz. You have blamed President Biden and reckless Democratic spending for the inflation crisis, but voters would like to hear your specific plan to cut spending. Please explain in 60 seconds.
Well, if you ask the U.S. government, they'll tell you they have 4% waste and fraud. Now, I've traveled over the Commonwealth and spoken to countless people. There was a lady in Beaver County at a county fair who told me with fear in her heart that she wanted to provide food for her son's highly nutritious chicken she wanted. She couldn't afford it anymore. That's a big problem. If we've got 4% waste and fraud, we ought to be able to take care of that. John Fetterman's, however, response continually is to raise taxes. He raised taxes as mayor. He tried to raise taxes as lieutenant governor, 46%. That's a big tax rate. He supported Joe Biden's recent tax rate increase, and he's done that without paying his own taxes 67 times. I'll say that again. He hasn't paid his own taxes.
How old is this guy? 67 times? What does that mean?
67 times, but he's raising mine and yours. Those are radical positions. They're extreme. They're out of touch with the values of Pennsylvanians. And I can make the difficult decisions, as you do in the operating room as a surgeon. I'll make them cutting our budget as well to make sure we don't have to raise taxes on a population already desperately in pain from the high inflation rate.
Mr. Fetterman, I will allow a 15-second rebuttal. He has specifically said you have not paid your taxes and that you want to raise taxes on Americans. How do you respond?
Absolutely. The Oz rule, of course, he's lying. It was helping two students 17 years ago to help them, buy their own homes. They didn't pay the bills, and it got her paid, and it has never been an issue in any of the campaign before. It was all about nonprofit.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Continuing with you, Mr. Fetterman, your opponent has criticized Democratic spending, as you heard. Has the Biden
Okay, wait, why didn't Biden copy this guy's strategy? Because he won his race. and he talked like that. What did Biden need? Oh my God, wait, am I being a huge asshole? Isn't this like right after he had his stroke? Fuck, my bad. Forget I said anything. Just kidding.